So, My Hero Academia's final chapter has just come out, concluding one of the greatest shonen series of all time. And the internet is on fire over it, and let's just say, not in a good way. Majority of the reception for this chapter has been negative. People absolutely hate this chapter, they hate the conclusion. In fact, I've been seeing a lot of people say that this is the worst ending in all of manga history. So, is the chapter really that bad? Did Horikoshi completely fumble the My Hero Academia ending? Let's talk about it. So, after hearing how terrible this chapter was, how it was the worst conclusion in all of manga, I decided to read the chapter myself and see, is it really as bad as people saying? And you guys want to know the truth? It is not. It is nowhere close to as bad as people are making it out to be. In fact, I think that this is a great ending. Now, I do have my own issues and problems with the ending that I will get into later, but let's just go over the things that people supposedly hate the most about this chapter. However, before we get into that, let's just take a very quick recap of this chapter, just in case if you haven't read it or if you're not caught up with the series. So the chapter starts off with Deku narrating the same thing he said back in the very first chapter of My Hero Academia. He says, people are not born equal. Individually, we all look different. However, our differences, both physical and mental, allow us to run towards other people in search of a common ground. So Deku is basically saying that despite the differences, people are still able to relate to one another and find common ground with one another. We then see a montage of all the moments after the war arc, and in that montage, we see that Deku is slowly losing the embers of One for All until he completely loses it. And then after that, we get an 8-year time skip where we see a character named Dai who aspires to be a hero the same as Deku, Bakugo, and Todoroki. But he thinks he's not strong enough to be a hero, kind of like how Deku was in the beginning. We then see that Deku is now a teacher at UA since he's quirkless, and he tells Aizawa that even though he's quirkless, he can use his experience to guide others. We see that Bakugo and Todoroki have now become top heroes competing for the #1 spot along with other pro heroes. We see Uravri, Ingenium, Froppy, and Momo starting their own companies together, and everyone has their own stuff going on. On Deku's way home, he encounters Dai, who asks Deku, "Is it possible for me to be a hero just like you?" And Deku remembers when he asked All Might the same question, and he starts to analyze Dai's quirk, and he comes to the conclusion that Dai can still be a hero despite his quirk being a little odd. And he realizes that it's his turn to inspire everyone else now. That's when All Might appears and says that for the last 8 years they have been working on a suit and support items in order for Deku to get back into the field that was funded by all of Class 1A and mainly Bakugo. And the chapter ends with Deku springing back into action once again despite being quirkless and now having a support suit that makes him just as powerful as his classmates. And the series ended right there. So now let's talk about why people absolutely hate this ending. And I'm going to tell you right now, most of the hate comes from misinformation spread online. Random creators were just saying random things about the chapter and it caught traction and now everyone hates it. First things first, the biggest complaint I've been seeing is that Deku never achieved his dream. Deku's dream was to become the world's greatest hero, and instead, he ended up being a teacher working a 9 to 5. Deku achieved his dream. People mix up Deku being the #1 hero with Deku being the greatest hero. And I'm here to tell you that those two are not the same thing at all. You do not need to be the #1 hero in order to be the greatest hero. Take Endeavor, for example. After All Might retires, Endeavor takes the #1 spot. Does Endeavor, at that moment, become the world's greatest hero, the greatest hero the world has ever seen? Does he surpass All Might in that category? Absolutely not. It just goes to show you that those rankings do not determine how great you are as a hero. Deku stopped an entire army. He stopped All For One and Shigaraki from taking over Japan and eventually taking over the entire world. And now the entire world knows who Deku is. In their eyes, he became the world's greatest hero. We even see Dai saying that kids wanted to be like Deku when they grew up. Deku took All Might's spot as the world's greatest hero. So even though Deku may not be the number one hero on the charts, he, in the eyes of the world, is still the greatest hero. And also, Deku has completely changed the world. There are so little villains in the current timeline that heroes are barely even needed, and this is thanks to Deku wiping out All For One and Shigaraki. So how can you say that Deku didn't achieve his dream if, one, he's recognized by the entire world, with Dai even saying that kids wanted to grow up and be like Deku, two, he saved the entire world, and three, he changed the future for everyone, allowing everyone to live better lives. Another complaint I've been seeing is that Deku shouldn't have lost One For All. I don't get how this is a real complaint, because ever since we got introduced to One For All, we knew that at some point Deku would lose it. That's because we saw All Might's One For All embers slowly burning out until All Might lost it himself. So we knew that this was going to be Deku's fate at one point or another. I don't get why people are surprised that Deku ended up losing it. It's been set up since the very start of the series. Complaint number 3 that I've been seeing is that Deku has been forgotten by the world, by his friends, and his actions are not recognized. Guys, it doesn't take much to actually read the chapter instead of going off of what other people are saying. I know for some of you reading is hard, but I do believe in you, because Deku was definitely not forgotten. Dai literally says in this chapter that kids aspired to be just like Deku, Bakugo, and Todoroki. Deku is on the same level as All Might was when he was a kid. Also, when Dai runs into Deku, he instantly recognizes him. That's how famous Deku is. Somebody can recognize him off of just a glance, despite the fact that he's been inactive as a hero for 8 years. Deku has worldwide recognition and fame. Like, are y'all forgetting that Deku's fight was broadcasted to the entire world? Of course, people are still going to remember who Deku is, but they're not going to actively talk about him because he's a retired hero at this point in time. And also, I've been seeing people say that Deku's friends forgot about him and abandoned him. And this comes from a simple mistranslation from leaks. In the actual chapter, all Deku says is that ever since they became adults, it's been hard for them to hang out as often because their schedules don't line up. That is such a normal thing. In fact, it is so normal that it makes vanilla look spicy. Like, that is the most basic thing that happens to all people when they grow up. Of course, they're not going to be hanging out with one another or talking to each other on a 24/7 basis because they're adults. They have their own lives going on now. Like, people are just trying to find random things to hate on this chapter about, or they're making up random things on the spot. It's literally stated that his friends for the last 8 years have been funding a project in order to build support items strong enough in order to get Deku back to being a hero. And for those people who are mad that Deku's a teacher, why are you mad? The chapter literally ends with Deku becoming a hero once again, despite being quirkless. The whole point of My Hero Academia has never been to be recognized or how strong your quirks are. The point of My Hero Academia and the point of Deku's character ever since the very first episode was that Deku's body just moves before he can even think, because he has the mentality and the heart of a hero despite the fact that he's quirkless. And him still being a hero at the end while being quirkless, just solidifies his character. It shows you that One For All wasn't everything that Deku had. One For All isn't what made Deku special. His mentality made him special. So that's why it's not even a big deal that Deku lost One For All. People are just misunderstanding the ending and overall just misunderstanding the entire story of My Hero Academia and then labeling this ending as horrible. The last major complaint I've been hearing is that Deku's father was never revealed. And to those people, I have to ask, what would have changed if Deku's dad was revealed? What in the story would have changed if we got that revelation? If Deku's bloodline had any significance to the story, fine. Maybe I can get behind that. But Deku's origins, his parents, his bloodline was never important to his character at all. Deku was simply just a quirkless kid who didn't have a dad. As sad as that may sound, that's just the truth of it. People were really hoping that Deku's dad was someone like All For One, for example, and just went into the classic shonen trope of him having a really overpowered parent. Like, no. Deku was simply just born quirkless. His dad has no significance to his story or the story in general. Now that I've cleared up the biggest complaints I've seen, I want to talk about my own criticism because, as I said earlier, I have my own issues with this ending. I think it's a good ending, but I don't think it's perfect. And my biggest criticism of the ending is that it just felt rushed. I feel like we could have gotten at least 3 more chapters of epilogue before the story concluded, especially to flesh out the time skip a little more and to see what everyone was up to after the war and after graduating UA. I feel like we should have gotten more moments like that in the ending. However, despite the pacing, this is all in all a good ending. I don't get why people are so mad over this. Deku achieved his dream and he became the world's greatest hero. Again, the #1 hero does not mean you are the greatest hero. He becomes the world's greatest hero. He changes the entire world. Villain rates drop to an all-time low where people barely even need heroes now. He's continuing to inspire people despite being quirkless. He's still in contact with all of his friends. And by the end of it, he still becomes a hero. So, again, people are literally mad over this ending for no good reason at all, and they're simply going off of what other people are saying online. The ending was good. This was a great shonen ending to one of the greatest shonen series of all time, and I will stand by that claim. Anyways, if you guys enjoyed the video, make sure to like and subscribe, and let me know what you guys want to see next. I hope you all have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you guys on the next one.